Hello, everyone. This is Logan, and welcome to Audioholics Unite. I am Logan, and this is...
What's up?
No, it's Tyler.
Oh,
Anyway,
this is Patrick.
right, so we're doing a new album.
A new album. I love albums.
I didn't say album. I
You
said
so
album.
did.
No, I didn't.
You so did.
Go back, everybody, go back in the tape and see if I said album.
You said album.
Shut up, neckbeard. Anyway.
Wait, no. Stop the recording and watch it.
I'm not doing that.
You fuck.
Anyway, so this is Firewind's self-titled album. It's not their first album, it looks
No,
like.
it's their new one. They've been around for a while, actually.
So give a little bit of background if you have any on Firewind.
Basically, what I know about Firewind is that Gus G, the guitarist for Ozzy from around 2009 to I think 2017, he played guitar on the Scream album, which is an album that I don't love, but it has some good elements to it, and the guitar playing is definitely one of them. Logan thought it was very mediocre.
Yeah, it was mediocre, but it did have like some high points and some very low points. But all around, it was just kind of like straight up 5 out of 10.
I would personally, like, if I were ranking it, I'd say more along the lines of like a 7. I actually think it's better than the new Ozzy album.
Oh, hard disagree.
Ordinary Man.
I mean, Air Raid alone is better than that entire album.
No, I mean, like, there's some good songs on Ordinary Man, but overall, I just think it's meh.
I would say, like, you know what I think it is? It's like they wrote the entire album to be played in, like, a live setting.
That's entirely what they did, I believe.
Yeah. They basically wrote the entire album to be played in a live setting, and as far as I can tell, they basically just did that for, like, probably the supporting tour and never again.
Pretty much.
Like,
I mean, the only reason they made an album is because Gus G was with the band for so long, you know? He stepped in, and he was with the band for, like, almost 10 years.
Like, I think the only high point, and actually I didn't even listen to the full album. We kind of just started recording while I was in the middle of listening. But the high point for me, I guess, was Soul Sucker.
It's a good song.
And the low
I like
point
the opening
for me,
track, too.
I didn't really care for it. I thought it was just mediocre. But, like, it's, you know, nothing about it is really... It really stands out. Ozzy doesn't really stand out. The guitar doesn't actually stand out, and that's kind of why I'm, like, sort of maybe not expecting the worst for Firewind, but expecting just total mediocrity.
Yeah, so Firewind is well, it kind of started as like a project Gus G had during his touring with Ozzy, but it eventually evolved into his own band, kind of like Zakk Wylde and Black Label Society, sort of like that. And I'd actually say the music isn't that far apart either, now that I think about it. But anyway.
Yeah, you know, when he was touring with Ozzy Wazzle over there.
From what I understand, Firewind is considered a power metal band, but one of the more unique ones because, you know, when you think power metal, you think crazy high-pitched vocals, like incredibly fast guitar riffs and stuff like that. From what I've heard of Firewind, which has only been like a little bit of one of their older albums, that's not really true of Firewind. Firewind has more of like a thrash metal kind of sound, and the vocals are more low end than what you'd expect from power metal, which is interesting. And I won't say it's bad, but I also am not expecting too much from this. The only reason we're covering it is because it came out today, and there's been a lot of buzz on like metal mediums talking about this album, so why not, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if there's that much buzz, maybe Pitchfork did review it.
No, they didn't. I looked it up.
Okay. All right. I guess...
Want to just get into it?
Yeah, I don't really have much to say because I literally only heard about this band today. He just texted me like, hey, you want to cover this album? I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's
The
new.
album's only 47 minutes long,
All
so I guess
right,
it
whatever.
probably can't be bloated.
All right. Well, I
That's the
mean,
hope.
I guess at least I can already give it a point for being short if it's terrible.
Yeah. Like, the worst albums are the ones that are super long and terrible.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, it's really difficult to do a double album. And
It is. I can't think of many successful examples of a double album.
I can think of two off the top of my head, but like I can think of a bunch of double albums with that have like a lot of good songs on them. I can't think of many double albums that are good from beginning to end. The only two I can think of, actually no, the only one I can think of is John Legend and Roots Wake Up. It's like this soul gospel album, and I would say it is good from beginning to end. I have it on vinyl.
Well, maybe at some point we can cover it on the podcast.
Yeah,
That could
yeah.
be interesting.
I think,
A longer
I mean, like,
episode, but hey.
depending on what you're into, but like it's John Legend and Roots, and they're already really established. And this was kind of before they were really famous too. This came out in
Yeah.
2010.
All
Or
right.
at
Well,
least like before like they hit like the peak of fame. Anyway.
you want to get into this?
Absolutely not. All right. 5, 4. Oh wait. No. Before we
What's
do the
up?
countdown, I have to do the obligatory thing.
Oh yeah.
We will have this album in the description on YouTube. Assuming it is on YouTube since it's so new, but I think it
Most
might.
new albums are available for streaming on YouTube, so you can probably find Firewind's like official
Probably that's true. Like I think
account and stream the
Trivium
whole
was
thing.
like officially on YouTube.
Yeah, it was.
That one. But yeah, so it will be on the description. It will be in the description. We highly recommend that you use ad blocker for the optimum listening experience. So, without further ado, the real countdown this time: 5, 4, 3, 2, and go. And we are on track 1. Welcome to the Empire.
Yes, indeed. So immediately, this is already different from what I expected. It's a nice little. What is that? I think that's an acoustic guitar.
I
a nice
assume this
little
is
lead
just
line.
an intro. I assume this is
Yeah.
just an intro track. Wait, no, it's not. It's 5 minutes long.
Well, it's the intro to the track. I thought that was what you were saying.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's going to build to something. It's not going to do this with the song. I'm just saying I was expecting it to start like at level 10, you know?
Mhm.
And this is not that. I mean, it's a nice lead line.
Yeah.
It's pleasant to listen to. The tone is really good.
This is really good guitar work. Why did it suck so hard? Like, I think that out of all the Ozzy albums, Scream was probably the one that had the worst guitar work. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. That just means that Zakk Wylde and Randy Rhoads are what you have to beat.
Damn.
Whoa, what in the hell, son? I will give you $1. I will give you $20 to do that on guitar.
Yeah, seriously. Hell yeah.
Oh, shit. You know what? Sometimes I think it helps to go into an album with low expectations. This is one of those times because this is exceeding my expectations and being really fucking good.
Yeah, this is.
Oh my god, it sounds like Candlemass.
Yeah, it's a little more high tempo for them, I think.
No, I mean like vocal wise though.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. So you can immediately hear what I'm talking about. This is much more low-end kind of vocals than what you're used to in a power
Yeah,
metal band.
I'm taking this track so far. I might actually, at least, if there's no better tracks on this album, I'm probably going to add this to my playlist of songs to remember. Also kind of somewhat has like an Avenged Sevenfold sound to it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, this is kind of like a more thrashy sound, and I think I definitely hear that in this track. Yeah, it's like a thrash riff. I could feel Metallica or Megadeth or Slayer all riffing like that.
I don't know why, but like this track reminds me so much just of like War of Words by Fight.
Oh shit, you're right. I love Fight.
Devour! Na, 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 na. That is a
And
good
Fight was
fucking
like
album.
borderline groove metal too.
Yeah. I I I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not, but I think that Rob Halford's post Judas Priest career is better than Judas Priest.
I
Like
would say
especially
Judas Priest is superior to Halford's solo career, but not Fight.
um I don't know. I think that like Halford's solo career, maybe it's just because it's more modern and less pop, but like, you know, Halford on his own just feels more metal. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I totally know what you mean.
yeah.
I'm not saying I don't enjoy Halford's solo career. I'm just saying I prefer an album like Defenders of the Faith or Screaming for Vengeance or,
I mean,
you know.
I guess I do too. Like, I guess the sin of Halford's like solo work is that the albums didn't tend to be good from beginning to end, but
Oh,
the
yeah.
tracks that were good were really, really good.
Like, I remember distinctly, I think Resurrection kind of dropped halfway through the album.
Yeah, they all kind of did that. I mean, there were there were 5 albums, 2 of which were Christmas albums.
Yeah.
Um,
Resurrection's the one I remember, and
yeah.
Crucible.
I mean, I think the best part too is that Halford eventually kind of like incorporated that sound.
We are now on Devour.
Oh my god, I was just talking about Devour. No, but he kind of incorporated that sound when he went back into Priest. He kind of incorporated that sound into them. Like if you listen to Firepower, there are parts of that album that sounds like they could have been like part of like Firepower. The title track actually sounds like a leftover from Halford's solo career.
You think so? I always thought Firepower sounded more like an album like Screaming for Vengeance than it did uh, the more modern Priest albums like
I don't know. I think it just has more
Redeemer
of
of
an edge
Souls
to
and
it than like I think like Priest in the 80s was, you know, they basically almost invented hair metal. So I mean,
I wouldn't say anything like they put out in the 80s sounded anything remotely like hair metal.
not like Poison, but more like Dokken or Kix or Rat or something along those lines. Like I'm not talking like Poison or Winger hair metal. I'm talking like good hair metal.
Gotcha. Well, I definitely think that they probably took influence from Judas Priest, but I wouldn't say Judas Priest was proto hair metal. I think that's going too far.
I would. Really, I guess it was more so Kiss that was proto hair metal, but
Like that's like calling Pantera new metal.
um, no. I would say that like just that kind of it kind of has that 80s sound and you can hear it like when you listen to an 80s album, you can immediately tell what decade it is just by listening to it.
Well, yeah,
80s
because like
albums,
production was very
yeah, echoey, kind of.
unique in that decade.
Exactly. Like everything in the 1980s had a shit ton of reverb.
Yeah.
But including Judas Priest. Like in the 1970s they didn't have a whole lot of I mean they did, but in the 80s everything was caked in reverb.
Well, let me just interrupt for a second. God damn, this is a fucking amazing solo.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Oh, it's still
This
going.
is
It's fucking
this
amazing.
is this is an amazing album actually.
So far, anyway.
Yeah. Um yeah, but I would say like especially with like, kind of like you know, like Defenders of the Faith, I would say especially was more hair metal. Like Love Bites, um, or actually no, even more so. Like Hellbent for Leather, I would think is like one of the first hair metal albums.
Oh.
No, like think about it. Like Delivering the Goods, Hellbent for Leather. Again, like I don't think hair metal should necessarily be synonymous with bad. There's a whole bunch of really good hair metal bands.
Yeah, but I would
And Judas Priest is one of
never call
those.
Judas Priest hair metal. Ever.
We are on Rising Fire now. This is track 3.
These tracks feel really short.
Yeah. You know what?
Man, that is a good riff.
You know what? Maybe if it was longer, it might have. It might have dragged. I love this album. Oh my god. I might have to see how much this goes for on vinyl.
Yeah, this is a fucking jam.
I don't know if it's released on vinyl. I don't think I've ever looked up a vinyl record on the day that it was released. So I don't know how long it takes for a vinyl of an album to be released.
I mean, vinyl's such a huge market these days that pretty much
Yeah,
all
it might
albums
just be released on the same day.
Yeah.
But what else? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, like I think it just has that sound of like Kicks or Rat or Dokken specifically. Maybe Crimson Glory. Like hair metal doesn't even have like a. I don't even know if hair metal really has a technical like specific definition. I think it's more so
mostly a
just
sound.
it's mostly a sound, and I think that Judas Priest sort of has that sound, is what I'm saying.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but I think you're going too far with it. Like I said, saying Judas Priest is hair metal to me is like saying Pantera is new metal.
But it
Yeah,
sounds
if you
literally
listen to new metal, you can
But it
hear a
sounds
ton of
literally
Pantera
nothing. But
influence.
Pantera is like an entirely different ballpark to new metal.
Exactly, and Judas Priest is an entirely different ballpark from hair metal. It's just that you can hear the influence.
Like I would closer like associate Rage Against the Machine with new metal because at least there was like rap elements to it.
Well, Rage Against the Machine is new metal, but like
No,
not new metal as we know it to be. Like when we talk
yeah.
about new metal, we're talking about bands like Limp Bizkit and
Crazy Town.
yeah, and Pantera has a lot of influence because all of those bands in new metal have groove metal as their foundation, which is
Yeah, but like I think more so like Rage Against the Machine because like there's elements of hair metal in Judas Priest. There are no elements of new metal in Pantera. It's not
well, I just
electronic.
told you, it's the groove.
It, it's not even okay. Yeah, but there's no rap elements. There's no electronic elements. Maybe there are in the newer albums. I haven't listened to the newer albums, but or not.
I mean,
newer
I
albums,
wouldn't say that
later
electronic elements defines new metal at all. I mean,
I
there are
think
definitely new metal bands that use electronic, but like not all of them, not even the bigger ones.
What, like Limp Bizkit, Disturbed, Linkin Park?
Disturbed never really used electronic elements until
The
recently, I
first,
think.
well, no, the first album they did.
I don't think so. I don't remember anything like
Like
being
even the
really
first
electronic.
track kind of sounded like kind of electronic-y. Not to the extent like Linkin Park was, but
Oh
all
yeah,
right.
Linkin Park was way more electronic-y.
Yeah, we are on breakaway now.
You know, I was listening to Linkin Park today, and a lot of people like to say, "Oh, Linkin Park doesn't hold up. It just sounds like super edgy emo garbage." To those people, I say, you have no taste. If you go back and listen to Linkin Park, I'd say it aged like fine wine, especially given the fact that we know Chester Bennington killed himself. You
I
hear the
think that
emotion in those tracks way more.
I think Linkin Park is the definition of a band that we are talking about today simply because the lead singer killed himself.
No, I mean, people loved Linkin Park before Chester Bennington killed himself.
Yeah, in like 2001, but I'm talking about now.
Even now, like, people have considered Linkin Park a classic band for 20 years.
Yeah, but like they suck. They suck
How?
really, really bad because they like
They have really
lyrics.
good they have really good
Literally
rap lyrics. They have
everything
amazing.
about Linkin Park is akin to Limp Bizkit. How can you like one and not the other?
No. So you have songs like Breaking the Habit that
Which is
talk about
terrible
how.
because the lyrics suck. Everything about it, it's just, it's angry white kid music is all it is.
No, Simple Plan is Angry White Kid music.
Exactly, just like Linkin Park. They are in the same
No.
ballpark. They are in the
No, they are
exact same
not.
ballpark.
No, they are
They
not.
are the exact bottom of the new metal, emo,
No.
punk
Simple
rock
Plan is
genre.
talking about people not wanting to hang out with you and like striking out with girls. Linkin Park is talking about thoughts of suicide, addiction to drugs, and alcoholism. Those are completely two different sides of a coin, dude.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. Just because you cover heavy subjects doesn't mean you're good. You have to like not sound annoying while doing it.
I don't think Linkin Park sounds annoying. I think Chester Bennington's voice is one of the most powerful aspects of Linkin Park. He puts such heavy emotion into everything he sings. You
I
can
mean, look,
feel the anger and the
I
anguish
have
in the
nothing
things he
against Chester.
sings.
Like, I have nothing against Chester Bennington, by the way. I'm sure he was a great guy, and his death, definitely had a huge impact on the music world. I just think that he had no vocal abilities and no talent whatsoever. Now, back to this album. Let's get off the subject. This album is fucking phenomenal.
I'm looking up the lyrics to this album right now because I'm curious what those are like.
I'm going to listen to this at some point after the podcast. I will listen to this again because I want to listen to it closer.
What do you mean can't reach?
Huh?
For some reason, it's not letting me look up the lyrics.
Hmm.
Okay.
All I'm saying about Linkin Park is that a 15-year-old could have written those lyrics.
I mean, I disagree vastly. I don't think that Linkin Park lyrics are poetic, but they're blunt and honest.
No, I think that they are. I think that they are poetic. I think that they sound like 15-year-old dark emo poetry.
I highly disagree to that concept. I think if you think a song like Breaking the Habit sounds like I'm 14 and this is deep, then you're just letting your bias consume you.
No, I'm thinking crawling in my skin. What is it? Crawling in my skin.
Yeah,
These
but
wounds
even
don't
that
seem to
song,
heal.
okay,
Like
listen, that
that is
song
like the
is
epitome of
meme
I'm
to
14 and
death,
this is
but
deep.
that song has been meme to death, but that song is, if you listen to it and read the lyrics, actually exactly the opposite of what you're claiming it is.
I
What
mean,
do you think
okay,
he
I'll listen
means
to
when he says crawling in my skin?
crawling in my skin. I don't know, anxiety or something, like anxiety or
It means he
like,
doesn't feel comfortable in his own body. It's about mental illness.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
there we go.
like,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, Linkin Park is definitely emo, but they're not fake emo. They talk about real problems and
I'm
real
sure they
pain.
aren't fake. I mean, well, considering what happened to the vocalist, I'm sure it came from the heart.
Yeah,
I'm just saying there were emo bands that did that way, way better and don't get nearly the credit.
maybe. I can't think of any.
I will actually be in the future. Um, I mean, in the future, as in like probably a month from now. You know, even if we did it tomorrow, I have like an entire month's worth of backlog. But I will be talking about a band called Spanish Love Songs, which is, I'm not gonna say they're like the very best emo band, but I think that I personally found them less annoying than Linkin Park. Oh my god. This
There
might
we go.
actually be the best song on the album. It is called,
Orbitual Sunrise.
yeah, this might be the best song so far.
My God, kill me. I cannot find lyrics anywhere to these songs, man. So I have no idea what these songs are about, but I'd imagine it's some epic power metal shit.
And we aren't even like halfway through the album. And like already I want to say like at least, very worst case scenario, this will get an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, we're almost halfway through.
Yeah.
Did we even say that we were on breakaway? I don't remember saying that.
Oh crap. Wait,
We missed
I
saying that we were on a song.
I don't remember. Anyway,
Because we were talking about Linkin Park.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll cover Linkin Park on the podcast at some point, and we can go over our disagreements a little bit more in depth. But
Okay.
for now, suffice it to say that after listening to them a lot today, I think that they have aged like fine wine, and they're one of those bands that will go down as one of the most influential. And talked about bands like a Nirvana.
You know what? I mean, like maybe it's just like the negative. Maybe I do need to listen. I will give Linkin Park a fair chance. I mean, like, you know, meme bands can definitely be good sometimes. I mean, look at Smash Mouth.
Yeah, Smash Mouth is underrated.
I
I wouldn't
totally
say they're
agree.
amazing, but
Yeah, I'm not. I personally really like. I mean, I mean, I basically started out my music life as a hippie. I basically have to like Smash Mouth.
yeah, you have to. I don't know. I think they make like some really groovy ska music.
Yeah, they were like they kind of started a little bit more punk, and like over time they kind of got more poppy until you got to things like, you know, All Star and Walking on the Sun,
Yeah.
which I think Walking on the Sun might actually be a cover, but I can't remember.
Oh, I don't know.
I think it is, but I can't remember who did it.
It's a fun ass song to play on guitar. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. You know what else is a fun ass song to play on guitar?
Don't say "Smoke on the Water."
No.
Don't say "Wonderwall."
Orbitual Sunrise. That's a fun song to play on guitar. Go ahead, try it. But also, yeah, Smoke on the Water and Wonderwall and Satisfaction and Miserlou.
Satisfaction
Hardest,
is fun.
and, you know, all those really hard songs to play on guitar.
Yeah. I've been recently learning Cornucopia by Black Sabbath, and that
That's a good
song is
one.
actually deceptively hard.
Yeah.
It sounds really simple, and it is simple, but it's hard. You wouldn't understand unless you learn. It's like Master of Puppets. It doesn't sound hard, but it is. Yeah. They call that the spider riff because it's so hard to do. And also, you have to downpick all of it because, of course, you do. So that's also difficult. But.
We are on Longing to Know You.
The viewers of this podcast will be happy to know that I've been spending my incredibly diverse time learning music theory recently.
Ooh, in theory.
In theory. So I can actually start to comment on why songs like this are melodically interesting.
In theory.
In theory, of course. I'm not like super into it yet, but I'm learning about rhythm right now.
In theory.
And one thing I've learned is that Pantera, one of the biggest, maybe I'll talk about this more if we ever cover a Pantera album, but one of their biggest strengths is that they have some really fucking amazing rhythms that I haven't really heard from other bands or musical projects in general, for that matter. Their riffs are actually really simple. It's just like 0, 0, 0 over and over again, but the rhythms are what make it amazing.
Yeah.
Metallica also is like that. Listen to a song like Battery. That riff is actually dog shit if it weren't for the fact that it has an amazing rhythm. It's literally like 0, 0, 0 and then like 2 power chords. It's fucking dog shit, but it's the rhythm of it that makes it as good as it is.
In theory, of course.
Of course. Nothing I say is true. It's all just a game theory.
In theory. But that's just a theory. A game theory. I don't actually
Thanks
know
for watching.
I don't actually know where the microphone is on my computer, so I'm hoping that I spoke it directly into the microphone.
A game theory.
A game theory.
This is a really nice song. You know what I was talking about a few podcasts ago about ballads that don't bog down the album and make it better and give you relief? This is exactly a good example of that. Because this is a ballad, but it's amazing. And it doesn't feel like it stops the flow of it or anything like that. If anything,
it almost sort of just sounds... I mean, maybe it does bog it down, but I think I've just grown up with so much 80s music to where a random-ass power ballad doesn't even faze me anymore. Like,
you
it's
mean
just
in general
expected.
or on this album?
In general, like, I can listen to Blow My Fuse by Kix, listen to something like Don't Close Your Eyes, and be like, yeah, that flows coherently, even though it clearly doesn't.
Can we at least agree that Bryan Adams is garbage?
Bryan Adams is the greatest artist of all. I'm kidding, they're garbage.
Thank you.
You know something I found out about Bryan Adams?
His name's not actually Brian.
I don't know. But
it's Timothy.
Really?
I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is. But
it's Chad. Chad Adams.
Chad Adams.
Chad Kroger. No.
Chad Kroger Adams. Ooh.
No, but like, I don't know why, but like Bryan Adams basically wants his entire discography basically erased from the internet. Like,
really?
You know, like his
That's
stuff is
a
still
good thing to me.
Like his entire discography is still, you know, released. You can listen to whatever you want on Spotify. But like, you know, like you listen to like Song Facts or things like that. You can't find... I think he like sued a website once for having information about him.
I just want to say that was one of the best ballads I think I have ever heard. That was amazing.
Yeah. I would not go that far.
I will come back to that a lot.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah.
What sort of ballads would you say are better? It was pretty good.
I mean, I could probably list a few, but like... We are on...
has some badass ballads.
Yeah. We are on Perfect Stranger.
Not all Dream Theater ballads are good, but some of them are really, really good. We were talking about that on Awake, actually, and I said, like, this ballad isn't good. We were talking
Well,
about No Strings Man or
we
something.
will be talking about that. We will be talking about that because remember, backlog.
Yeah, well, eventually.
Yeah.
We aren't recording these in the order that they're released, in case Logan hasn't said that before. Like, we're releasing them based on,
We will
like,
be
what seems
releasing.
more relevant.
Yeah, we are. I have about 4, I think, unreleased. I think. What are we on? Maybe 2, 3, or 4 unreleased podcasts already.
Yeah, and we're releasing them every Wednesday, so...
Yeah, and we are going to be releasing this one the following Wednesday that we did it. So we are recording this on Friday, May 15th. It will be uploaded next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Just seems, I mean, there's obviously a lot of problems with recording things this way, but it just seems like the best way of doing it so that, you know, we never run out of content and we always have like a fresh log of material. The
Yeah.
downside is that, potentially speaking, we could release an episode and probably end up releasing it 3 months later. But you know, with albums, I mean, we're going to be ending that. We'll end up listening to music that's 10, 20, 30, 40 years old. So that hardly seems like an issue.
Yeah, pretty much. The only time in which I would say it is a week like this when we're listening to an album that just came out. We want to put that one out sooner rather than later because nobody's... I mean, this is a great album, but realistically, people aren't going to talk about it as much in a month as they are now.
Yeah, well, that's why we're releasing this. That's why we release, like, new, more relevant albums immediately.
God, that is a great riff.
Yeah.
That's a good groove.
I can't wait. Probably tomorrow I'm going to listen to this again.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because I'm not paying as much attention to this album as I would like.
That's one unfortunate thing about this podcast is, like, it's a great avenue to listen and talk about music, but if you're trying to listen to it really closely, you're not gonna be able to do that on the podcast.
And also, like, oftentimes we're listening to, I guess we're getting a little bit more into, like, the technical sort of planning side of this podcast. A lot of times we are listening to these albums for the first time. These are not always. I mean, especially, you know, not with the Missing Shags episode. But, you know, not for the most part, for a lot of times we are listening to these albums for the first time, or at least one of us is. But yeah, you know, it's, ideally you should listen to an album and give it, like, at least 24 hours to fully process an opinion. Given the way that we are setting this up, we can't definitively review the album. We can only just say, based off of our first impressions, what we think of the album. So if we rate an album badly, but, like, the majority of people really like it, don't take that as our definitive opinion. Take that as our first impressions of the album.
Yeah, like, have you released a Trivium episode yet? I don't remember.
I did release the Trivium episode, I think.
Yeah, so we didn't shit on that album, but, like, as time has gone on, his opinion of it has soured, and mine has gone a little bit better. That's just an example. I've listened to a few tracks off of that album a lot more than I expected to, and
I think that it is mediocre, mostly pretty boring, but obviously a lot of time. It's like, I think that it is the musical equivalent of a Tim Burton movie. All style, no substance.
So, like, the main reason I bring that up is because all the critics were raving about that album. I didn't see one mediocre review of it. Everyone was giving it 8 or higher. And we kind of were like, 6. I think that's what I gave it, a 6.
I don't remember what I gave it. It was a while ago.
Yeah. And that's based on first impressions. If I were to rate it today after having listened to it a few more times, it'd be more like a 7.
Yeah.
But other albums like Abbey Road, I think I would actually rate that lower.
Really?
So
Well,
I
I
went back and
haven't.
listened to it, and I think
Well,
I would actually rate it as a 9 now rather than a 10.
yeah. You might have given it a 9, but that episode has not been released. That will probably be released next week after this one. I
But what
think.
you released last week?
I released the Sonny Bono album.
Oh, I thought you were releasing Abbey
Interviews.
Road.
I released Sonny Bono. I guess we probably should be in better communication about what I have and haven't released, because I'm always the one that uploads them.
Yeah, he records it and uploads it.
I record all the
just along for the
episodes.
ride.
I record all the episodes. I usually don't edit it. That's pretty obvious. I usually don't edit it. I usually upload it whole, but if I have to, I'll like run it through Filmora, cut out something if I need to, and then upload it. I think eventually, if we get bigger, we will probably have a higher production value. But
Yeah.
considering that virtually nobody is watching our show, it doesn't really seem necessary for the few people, if anybody, who does.
Yeah, I mean, like, if we start getting enough watchers, like hundreds, thousands of watchers, then we'll talk about upgrading cameras and other things as well. But right now, my fucking laptop camera is fine.
Yeah, we're just in ghetto mode now. If I really wanted to, I probably could devote some actual energy into this, because I actually really enjoy doing this podcast.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I love coming on here and just listening to an album and talking about it. We do that in our free time, guys.
Yeah.
The podcast is basically just us recording what we already do, you know?
Yeah, like as far as I'm aware, I don't think a show has this exact format of just like track by tracking an album. I think the way that I came about, I don't remember if this was my idea or his. I think it was mine. But the way that I came about it,
we are now on...
We were on Overdrive before. Now we are on All My Love.
So we're almost All My Life. We're almost at the end of
All My Life.
album.
Yeah, but this is a really good album. I think I got the idea sort of from, I was looking up Let It Be Naked, which is, it's the album Let It Be by the Beatles, but it's, well, there's an entire story behind it, but basically it's just kind of differently mixed, differently mastered, different instruments, and it just sounds different from the actual album. But to my point, there was a video of somebody basically doing exactly this. It wasn't as much of a relaxed style as this album, as this podcast, if I recall. But somebody was doing a track by track of Let It Be Naked, and they did it in the same style where they didn't actually listen to the album. It was almost sort of like a commentary track. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like if you like pop in a DVD and like, you go to the bonus features, you have like a commentary track that, it'll be like the director or an actor or something like that, or a producer of the movie playing over the thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember if it was your idea or mine, but I remember thinking about doing it a while back because I actually came across a show on YouTube where they do this, but with TV shows and movies. So they watch a TV show or a movie, and then they commentate over it, and then you're supposed to watch the TV show or the movie along with them.
If you remember who they are, tell me about it after the podcast, because that actually sounds like something I could get into. Is that
It
like
is
riff
really
tracks or
fun.
something? Is it like riff tracks or something, or chick tracks?
It's something like that, I guess. I'll send it to you.
Because I think chick tracks isn't on YouTube. I think you have to pay for that.
I don't know. But yeah, it was really just an interesting idea, and I was like, what if we did that for albums? That
Yeah.
would be really cool. So yeah, I think it's a really fun. I want to say something though about this album. This is kind of what I expected Trivium to be. Like, not
Yeah.
power metal with thrash riffs, but like a really quality metal album like this that's somewhat unique. Maybe not the most unique, influential sound of all time. This band is not going to go down as the next Avenged Sevenfold or the next Black Sabbath. But like, if you want to listen to some really good music, this is a great band for that. That's what I expected Trivium to be.
Yeah.
This is basically what that is.
Yeah,
Like,
this
if
is
I
a
were to
really
rate
good.
it,
This
if
is
I
a
were to
really
rate it
good
right
album, I think.
now, it'd be either an 8 or a 9 because, I don't think it's amazing. It's not a masterpiece, but if you want to just listen to some really good metal, that's what it is, and it's here for
Yeah.
you. If you're pissed off that the next Avenged Sevenfold album got delayed, Blue Oyster Cult isn't releasing their album yet, whatever, you have this.
Yeah.
It'll hold you over.
Yeah, and I think this is, so far I would give it a 9 out of 10, probably.
I think it's missing like a little bit. I don't want to say it's missing something, but I feel like it is. There's something missing about it that prevents me from wanting to give it a perfect score. 10
Oh,
out
he
of
does
10.
do like some like metal screaming.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I've noticed here and there throughout the
Yeah.
album, but for the most part, it's really
It's in
just low
moderation,
end.
and I think that works.
I will say that the other album that I listened to some songs off of was called Allegiance, and I don't remember it being anywhere near this quality. So I don't know if
Yeah.
I was just not listening to it closely or if this album is just so much better. I don't know.
We are on Space Cowboy now, which is a pretty good Stephen Miller Band song. I'm sorry,
So
no,
far,
Steve Miller. Oh my god. Why are there like so many like people in politics now who sound like old school classic rockers? Like, there was a guy running against Trump on the Republican ticket who was literally named Joe Walsh. And there's a guy in Trump's cabinet named Stephen Miller. And then there's a guy who has the Steve Miller Band.
that's amazing. I don't know. Maybe Republicans are just getting really into classic rock.
Yeah. I mean, look, I mean, you got Ted Nugent to thank for that.
Shit.
But, no. I think another thing I like about doing this centered around music, not just because music is our kind of greatest passion, our greatest interest, like, for me, like, I play video games, I watch movies, I watch television. Music is the thing that I am the most interested in. But I think music and music reviewing is still relatively fertile ground on YouTube. As like with video games, like we've had Classic Game Room, Angry Video Game Nerd, IGN, people like that. We've had them since the very early days, pioneer days of YouTube. With movies, we've had like the Nostalgia Critic and like Cinema Snob.
You're on YouTube, you basically just have Anthony Fantano, and that's about it.
I mean, like, we have like Anthony Fantano, Todd in the Shadows, and you have like you have a lot of variety. Like you have like, people like Vieira Volts and Razor Fist who do like discographies. You have ARTV who kind of does like album reviews, but also more so like music journalism. Anthony Fantano is kind of the same. Here's the thing, specifically about Todd in the Shadows and Anthony Fantano, and I know I will get a lot of controversy about this, but they suck. They suck, and the reason that people watch them is because there's literally nothing better.
I don't know. I think Todd in the Shadows is fucking hilarious. That's his biggest draw, is that he's comedic, he's entertaining, and he's informative.
I think that Todd in the Shadows is just really kind of awkward in a sense. Like,
yeah, but that's his brand.
He's been doing this for 10 years and he still sounds like he's some awkward kid in front of a webcam. Like, obviously he's in his 30s and he's been doing this, since after he graduated college.
Oh, by the way, to interrupt real quick, this is the last track on the album, Kill the Pain.
Yeah. But I think that I'm not necessarily saying I could do it better, but I think that somebody with the personality of like a JonTron or a Nostalgia Critic could do what he does better.
Probably. We don't have someone like that, though. Not yet.
Unfortunately, no. And, I've thought of getting into music reviewing. Maybe it'll happen at some point. I would probably do kind of like... I would probably sort of, if I were to do it, I would probably do it in a sort of style like that. Like Todd in the Shadows, like Nostalgia Critic, and I would do something sort of similar to Todd in the Shadows' Train Record series, but sort of broaden it out a little bit. Like, it wouldn't necessarily be, like, albums that ruined a band. It would just be bad albums by good bands.
Yeah.
Like, one that I was maybe thinking of doing is John Lennon's 1969 live album, which I will go on record as saying is the absolute worst live album ever made.
Or you could do that CCR record, Mardi Gras.
Yeah, I could do it. I mean, Todd in the Shadows already did it, and I think he quite honestly said all that needs to be said about that album. I think I think if there's nothing more, to say, then I'm just not going to say it. If you want to know more about Creedence Clearwater Revival's Mardi Gras, go look at Todd in the Shadows review. Is he the most entertaining personality? No, but he's factual and he's informative. And I think that's, does he get things wrong? Probably. Everybody does. But, I think he kind of tries to do his homework before putting out an album. Or putting out a video. Review. So I would recommend checking his stuff out. I'm just saying that somebody could do his style better. We haven't reached peak music reviewing like we have with game reviewing, to where every single style has been done and done well. If you want good, like, retro video game reviewing, look at JonTron. Look at Angry Video Game Nerd. Maybe AVGN stuff hasn't exactly aged well because it's not as funny. But, you can still learn about, like, classic video games from his show. If you want, like, good... If you want good, like, modern gaming reviews, IGN has been there since the very beginning.
Yeah, but IGN sucks.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, they're more kind of, like, straight-laced, like, actual reviewing. They don't try to be funny.
I feel like if you want something like that, there are better reviewers out there.
I mean, Jim Sterling occasionally does reviews.
Well, he doesn't really do reviews anymore. More like first impressions. He used to,
Yeah.
though.
Um, there's like a bunch of things. I guess I can't really like. There's a bunch of YouTubers who do like video game stuff, and they do it really, really well.
Yeah.
All right,
So
so
that was the end of the album.
yeah,
That was kind of abrupt, honestly.
yeah. 9 out of 10.
Firewind definitely seems like the type of band to just kind of walk on stage, play their show, and leave, you know?
Yeah,
That's what it feels like to me. All right, so I
nine out
didn't
of
really get
ten.
to talk about my thoughts on the album as much while we were listening to it because we were talking about other things, but let me just get out some of the things that I noticed. All right, so one thing is I really praise the guitar riffs on this album, but
Very much so. Yes.
after a while, I think they started to kind of blend together in a negative way. You listen to something like Pantera, every single song sounds different guitar riff wise, but in this album, after a while, you could put any riff from one song into another, and it wouldn't feel really all that out of place, and that's a negative to me. And the vocals were amazing, amazing vocals, amazing drumming actually, but the bass, did you even hear it?
No.
Me neither. I don't have any idea what the bassist was doing, and maybe that's a problem with the mix, or maybe it's just because their bassist sucks. Or
Um.
it could also just be that the bassist was playing exactly what the guitarist plays, and in that case, it added to a sort of heavier sound. The guitar tone was really good, but I would say it was kind of not unique. It was a little generic for metal. It was good. It wasn't a
Yeah.
bad tone, but and the final criticism that I think I can kind of wage against this record is that I sort of said all the guitar riffs kind of start to blend together. That's a problem with this album as a whole. If you were to take parts of something like Orbitual Sunrise and then throw it into parts of Devour or Overdrive, I'm not sure I'd be able to tell the difference.
That's actually a good point. That's actually a good point. I might actually have to lower my score a little bit, but before I do that, what would you rate the album on a scale from 1 to 10?
So, with all that in mind, I would also point to the fact that even though it does blend together a bit, it's still really fucking good. And if you think about it like something, you know what, you love Fear in Inoculum by Tool, right? That album blends together. So it's not always necessarily a negative.
I don't love it, but I think it's probably the best Tool album, in my opinion.
So I don't know if I'd really say what I said was much of a criticism, but it was an observation. And due to that fact, I would say the flow of the album is amazing. It's an incredibly consistent album. I don't think there was one subpar song on it. But there was nothing that was like amazing, 10 out of 10 amazing, like masterpiece level music either. There was no highs, there was no lows. It kind of just stayed consistently at the same level throughout the whole way. And due to that fact, I would give this album a straight-laced 8 out of 10. It was consistently great, but it was never amazing and it was never below great, you know?
Right. So I would say that I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Earlier I gave it a 9. I'm going to give it an 8.5. But you know, I think that it's like I said earlier in the podcast, this is our first impressions. Both of us are probably going to listen to this album probably tomorrow, and we might come away with completely different opinions. But
Yeah.
I think it's unfair to say that there's no masterpiece level tracks on this album. Because at least for me, you know, I think like you have to listen to an album 2, 3, or 4 times, something like that, and really see what sticks with you. Like if you
I
listen
agree.
to an album a second time and you kind of remember aspects of it, then you can say it's a masterpiece.
I agree, but like just based on first impression, first listening, that's my impressions.
Right. Um, like he said, guitar work is really good, drum work is really good, vocals are really good, bass inaudible as fucking always. Um, I do agree with his. I do agree with his observation that a lot of the songs kind of blend together. I don't necessarily think it makes the songs bad.
No, not bad.
And I don't think he thinks that either. But I would say that that is definitely worth taking some points off of this album. I think this album at least is original enough to have an identity all its own. And really, that's
Yeah.
the best thing you can say about a band is that it has its own unique identity. I,
Yeah.
I, why would I listen to Dream Theater as opposed to Rush, who arguably does some similar things to Dream Theater? Because Dream Theater has an identity all its own.
It has a sound you can't get pretty much anywhere else. At least
Exactly.
not to
And
the
that's
same
why
level of
Dream Theater
quality.
is unique. And that's why Dream Theater consistently sells albums. And that's why they will go down in history as a good band. Whereas something like Nickelback, you know, say they're bad all you want. The problem with Nickelback is that a whole bunch of bands have done what Nickelback has done, and they've done it better.
Yeah.
There's no good reason to listen to Limp Bizkit or Nickelback or any of the other notoriously bad bands because there's bands that do what Limp Bizkit does. There's bands that do what Nickelback does better than Nickelback and Limp Bizkit. So, with all of that said, I think that this is a band that is definitely worth listening to. It is a band that is definitely high shelf material. Maybe they run together a little bit, but either way, I would come back to songs on this album, and I definitely will, and I will definitely, I was talking before about maybe collecting this on vinyl. If I listen to the album tomorrow and I have the same positive experience tomorrow as I did today, I might follow through with that and buy the vinyl record.
Yeah. I think everything you said is valid, and I think Firewind definitely has a unique sound. One of the reasons I really wanted to listen to this album is because I was listening to, well, I wasn't listening, I was reading an interview with Gus G, the guitarist of this record, and he was saying a lot of power metal sounds the same. Like, you can pick Dragon Force, Halloween, Blind Guardian, and a few other bands and put them all together, and they pretty much all blend together. They don't
I
have an
agree.
incredibly unique sound.
I do agree, and that's why, generally speaking, I like power metal bands. I'm not, super crazy about the genre, is because there isn't a whole lot of variety in it. And even
Yeah.
with the the godfathers of power metal, Iron Maiden, I prefer the Paul Di'Anno stuff. I know that's controversial to say, but the first two Iron Maiden albums I think are superior than anything they released
Yeah,
afterwards.
but I wouldn't say the first two Iron Maiden albums count as power metal.
They
But if you
aren't power
put
metal, and that's
like a
why I
power
like them
metal
better.
album, if you put a power metal album like Peace of Mind or like Power Slave next to Dragon Force or Blind Guardian, and you hadn't heard any of those songs before, I wouldn't blame you for thinking they're all by the same.
Yeah.
But Firewind is different. I can't think of one power metal band that sounds like Firewind other than Firewind, to the point where I almost don't want to call Firewind power metal. I mean, it
You know what?
clearly
I got a
is,
friend. I have a
but
friend who's like really into power metal. I'm gonna have to or I think he's into power metal. I can't. Yeah, I have a friend who's into power metal. I'm gonna send him this album whenever we hang up.
do it. Maybe he already knows about Firewind. I don't
He
know.
might.
But
Yeah.
that was an observation that I just remembered when Logan, or that was something Gus G said, that Logan just reminded me of. And yeah, that's an incredibly big plus to Firewind. I think it's not a good enough reason to change my rating from an 8, but it definitely solidifies my opinion that this is an album worth listening to.
This is what I think. I think that, you know, it's like you kind of he's half right. This album sounds like no other power metal band that I've heard before. The problem is, within its own realm, it sounds the same. And we made that criticism before. So, I mean, it's unique and innovative, but only within itself.
Yeah, within power metal.
Or do you know what I mean? Like, it's unique and innovative. That doesn't necessarily mean that all the songs aren't derivative of each other within this album and possibly within this band. I haven't listened to anything else they've done.
The only other band I think sounds somewhat similar to Firewind is Symphony X, which is a band that I listen to. They're a prog metal band, but they have been called power metal because some of their albums and songs have a feel of power metal about them. I don't know if that's an apt comparison. I don't think I would call Symphony X power metal for the most part, even though they do have albums like The Odyssey, which are entirely just a musical retelling of the fucking Odyssey, which is extremely power metal-esque. But the music itself is prog. You know, it's Judas Priest if Judas Priest did prog metal. That's what it is. It's very distinct from Dream Theater or Rush. But Firewind does have a similar sound to the point where if you compare the two bands, they're unique enough that I wouldn't call them a rip-off of each other, but it's a decent comparison nonetheless.
You know, it kind of... I made the comparison earlier of Fight, which was Halford's...
They do sound a bit like Fight.
Yeah, and Fight is not at all power metal. But, you know, I think...
to know which band came out first, Symphony X or Firewind. Because I wonder if Firewind did take inspiration from
Well, I think, like...
like
Symphony X has been around for decades, haven't they?
Yeah, but I think Firewind's been around since the 90s. So I don't
think
know.
they've been... didn't you say this was, like, a side project they started with, like, after they left Ozzy or something?
No, he was still in Ozzy. It was like,
Okay.
2002.
Well, their earliest album was 2002.
Oh, so maybe this actually was started before he joined Ozzy, because I think he joined Ozzy in 2007.
Yeah, I don't entirely know, but
Symphony X definitely started before 2002, so I would not be surprised if they took huge inspiration from Symphony X.
Yeah, and also, like, you know, bands can take inspiration from each other. Like, music doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like,
oh yeah,
like Queensryche came out after Iron Maiden, but if you listen to a lot of Iron Maiden's later albums, and Bruce Dickinson has even admitted it, he really admires Queensryche, and there is definitely inspiration. I'm not saying Iron Maiden's albums are good, they're terrible, but they are definitely inspired by Queensryche.
Another good example of that, which is a little more apt to a previous video we did, is that Black Sabbath was actually inspired by doom metal bands later in their career. If
like
you listen
Candlemass.
to albums like 13 and The Devil You Know, yeah, like Candlemass, you can hear inspiration. And I think that's been more or less proven by the fact that Tony Iommi featured on the latest Candlemass record. Why would he do that if he didn't know about them and know who they are?
Yeah.
And I think it is obvious that he listened to them and was at least a little bit inspired by them if you listen to an album like The Devil You Know, which, frankly, half of that album sounds like something Candlemass would do. And I think that's even something you've said as a criticism against it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's definitely more of a fan. By the way, if anybody's interested in our opinions on Black Sabbath albums, we did a video.
It kind of sucked, though.
Yeah, we did a video, The Wrong Opinion, episode 1, where we did a tier list of all the Black Sabbath albums. We were kind of like figuring out what format we want to do. In the future, all the wrong opinion segments will just be us separately, you know, just talking about our opinions on the albums.
Yeah, and frankly, like I was floundering, and so were you when we were talking about some of the Black Sabbath albums. I don't think we
Yeah,
really knew what we wanted to say going into it, and that caused a
yeah.
problem.
Yeah, but anyway, you know, he's a much bigger fan of Candlemass than I did. I think I ranked Devil You Know not the worst album. It was like very, very bad. And
I
he
still
really
think it's
likes it.
one of the better albums, but I don't even rank it in my top 10 anymore. I don't know if I did in that video, but I definitely don't anymore.
I just think that it is an extremely boring album. I think that, you know, Dio sounded like he was on his last legs, and he was, unfortunately. You know, it sounds like somebody singing his, you know, it sounds like he's singing his last dying breath. And in some case that's almost romantic.
Okay, so I lied. It is actually at number 10.
Okay.
So it is in my top 10.
But you know, I guess there's a sort of romanticism to that. But I don't know. I would have honestly just preferred no album to kind of the. I think like the best, just, you know, pre-mortem or post-mortem albums are the ones where they don't sound like they are dying. Like what is it? Made in Heaven by Queen,
I knew you
Mother
were going to
Love.
say that. I
That
knew
is
you were going to say
probably, I would say, I'm not going to say the best post-mortem album of all time,
that. He
but
fucking
one of the
literally
most
died
unique.
in the recording.
Yeah, in the middle of recording the song. So I mean, you know, there's a bunch of post-mortem albums. There's, you know,
They're,
and
they're talking about releasing a new, I think it was like a new Audio Slave album or a new Soundgarden album or something like that
maybe.
Chris Cornell had actually set vocals to already. They just didn't do the rest of the album yet.
Yeah, a lot of things happen like that, you know. Post-mortem albums, this is off topic, but I think post-mortem albums can really be hit or miss. Um, you know, I, Bill Maher actually made a good point many, many years ago. He basically said if the album was good, they would have released it when they were alive. And generally, that's true.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, sometimes they literally can't because they died too soon. But other
Yeah.
times, it's, yeah, they only release the music because the dude died. I mean, think about something like Cross Off. All right, so that was a post-modem. I can't even fucking talk.
Post-mortem,
I'm tired,
honey.
people. I'm tired. After Chester Bennington commits suicide, they released a song that he did vocals on. It was the only song he did vocals on before his death, other than what had already been released. And they released it after he died, and it turned out to be one of the best songs he ever did vocals on, period. And the reason why it wasn't released during his lifetime is because he killed himself before the album came out. It was always going to come out. And that's why something like that turned out great. But compare that to, oh, what's a good example of something terrible that was released after the fact? Oh, crap. There was that one rapper who died. Tentacion or something like that.
Extension.
Yeah, or Extension.
Yeah, whatever.
No, but they released like B-sides and shit after he died, and it turned out to be a lot of really terrible stuff because they were stuff that he didn't want to release, and the label just did it anyways because he died and they knew it would gain clout.
Yeah, like there's a lot of good post-mortem albums. In Utero, I think, is technically a post-mortem album, and you know,
Meh.
whether you're a Nirvana fan or not, you got to at least admit that it was impactful, and a lot of people really liked it.
Nirvana's albums are impactful, but I think Nirvana's albums are dog shit. I don't want to go into like a huge debate about any of
Yeah.
it right now, but if we ever cover a
Um,
Nirvana album on this podcast,
we
just
will.
be aware I'm going to shit all over
Yeah.
it.
But you know, Prince is actually. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen a whole lot of post-mortem music from Prince, because I remember when he died, I heard that he had like probably 20 years worth of material.
Really?
Yeah, like if he would have released
That'd
like
be
one
interesting.
album every year, he probably would have had like 20 albums worth of material. And I'm
And this is
honestly
just
really surprised that we haven't heard a lot of post-mortem stuff from Prince. He was, he definitely worked really hard.
this is just kind of like a thing that happens when you're a musician, someone who creates music. Not everything you make is good, and so often you scrap songs, and then later on maybe you come back and you take an idea that you had in that song and you put it into a new project, and that's how most of the best songs get made. If you ever read into behind the scenes,
that is true. That happened
songwriting.
a lot of games, in fact. Like what, Doom was supposed to be an Aliens video game, and then they scrapped that and then reused it for another game, and then Doom. I mean, we know how big Doom is.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. It's honestly insane how many people like think writing music is just this easy thing, like you just sit down and boom, it's done. No, like you're going through 15 ideas and none of them get used. I think Tony Iommi said for like every 50 riffs I write, I use one of them.
Yeah, like there was like a story.
Effect.
Yeah, there was like a story about like when he was jamming with Tony Martin, and he had like 3 or 4 bags filled with cassettes that just have a whole bunch of riffs on them.
Yeah.
And obviously most of them never saw the light of day.
Yeah, because he didn't think they were
and
good
probably
enough.
Never will.
Yeah. Although he has said recently that, I don't know if you heard about this, but Tony Iommi actually said recently he was supposed to be in the studio right now recording his solo album.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure we will hear more from Tony Iommi, just not those exact riffs.
Yeah. Well, he said, who was it that said this actually? I think it might have been Brian May, who said like Tony Iommi has over 100 riffs he wants to use on a project. And like they were going to just release it as like an instrumental project. And Tony Iommi was like, no, if I'm going to release these riffs, I want them to be released as actual songs.
Oh my God, that would be
about.
I mean, Tony Iommi and Brian May doing a project together, it was decades in the making. They are friends.
I don't know if they are doing a project together. I just know that that's what Brian May said. Brian May actually had a solo on a Black Sabbath track on.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't he? Yeah, I don't remember what album it was, but it was one of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's try not to go on another tangent. This podcast isn't 5 hours long, but yeah. So in conclusion, Firewind was actually a really good album. It did have some flaws, but overall, it was something I would come back to, and it's something I would recommend to anyone who's a fan of metal.
I totally agree with that.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hasta la pizza.